I spit for children of the ghetto, surrounded by rock like heavy metal. Has never seen the beauty of the ocean nor metal. The system steady pulling they strings just like Geppetto. But I swear I never settle till I free them from the devil. I spit for black babies trying to keep their hope alive. The world is trying to take away their hunger to survive. I spit for lost sheep. Never dream of unities. They can't see above their situations and adversities. Who's only real role models is gangsters. They cut back the bankers, the channel they aim to blow. Rise and fall like the movement of the Dow. They say revolution's coming, but I say the time is now. I put that on my mother and everything that I hold dear. Covered by the waters of faith, so I don't feel fear. Cause you ain't living till you're willing to die. I'm sick and tired of my people living just to get by. I speak for all my ancestors that are dead in the Atlantic. Fed the shark infested waters makes me wanna go manic. Color money, they should change it to red. Cause it's soaked in the blood of my people, blood of the dead, yeah. Nat Turner, yo, I spit for you. I spit for you. Fred Hampton, yeah, I spit for you. I spit for you. John Brown, yeah, I spit for you. I spit for you. Megan Evans, yo, I spit for you. I spit for you. Emmett Till, yeah, I spit for you. I spit for you. Malcolm X, yeah, I spit for you. I spit for you. Dr. King, yo, I spit for you. I spit for you. Huey P, yeah, I spit for you. I'm seeing slave ships to make the Amistad look like a cruise that never once got the chance to take revenge of the crew. Ain't no limit to the evil men do. Hey yo, a war on terrorism means a war against you. Uncle Sam, the biggest terrorist the world has ever known, stole land from indigenous peoples and called it home. Knew it was theirs, but you called it your own. Still you got the nerve to wonder why you reap what you sow. I remember all the blankets that you lace with the flu, but you don't call it terrorism till it's done against you. You know the plan, and yeah, I know exactly who I am. I'm original man, the one that built the pyramids in the sand. Once you still can't build with your machine in your hand. You see the Abraham raised in true motherland. Miss America, the queen of the damn. A bloodsucker vampire, so I thought I meant ran. But you better understand, SB gon' stand. You steady telling me I can't, well I know that I can. Even if I had to rock it as a one-man band. The only weapons that I need are the paper and pen. Yeah, Chi-Town, yo, I spit for you, yeah. Southside, yo, I spit for you. West side, yeah, I spit for you. North side, I spit for you. East Coast, I spit for you. West Coast, yeah, I spit for you. Dirty South, I spit for you. The Midwest, yeah, I spit for you. I spit for thugs that's incarcerated. Call it the matrix cause I know they just a product of the fear and the hatred. Constantly told that they never gon' make it, but the spell that they cast on my people, I came to break it. I wasn't born yesterday, know that there's a better way. Know I'll find an answer through God, drop to my knees and pray. Cause I was sent to wake the people from the coma they in. Stop them from drowning all their troubles in the weed and the gin. Cause you're the problem still there when the highs are gone. I hope you're listening, this is much more than this song. An antidote that you can take and it can make y'all strong. We've been sedated by the poison for much too long. I seen the night, but yo, I still see the light in the dark. Long as I'm here and I'm breathing, y'all believe in this song. See, I was born to fight, born to ignite, and born with the sight to conquer the blight. Fight for what's right. Cause in my dreams, I can still hear the screams. Still see the slaves getting raped in their teens. Telling me to carry the torch, even if my people still don't understand it, wanna sit on the porch. I speak for you, Stephen Biko. I speak for you, Nelson Mandela, yo. I speak for you, Benny Lou Hamer. I speak for you, MFDP, yeah. I speak for you.
Hello. Welcome back to day number 3 in our 5-part series in support and partnership with Activists Incorporated. Thank you for joining us as we do part 5 series of conversations with justice-involved fathers, exploring and examining just how our justice-involved fathers reconnect and reclaim their role within our families and within our communities. Thus far, we've had guest Gerald Cook, as well as yesterday's guest, William Too Short Edwards, who were both extremely dynamic guests, transparent, vulnerable, and providing the insight that we need as we move forward in bettering our communities. I want to thank right now Activists Incorporated for their support of this podcast and their support in helping getting guests on. Also want to take the time to remind you that as we talk about justice involved fathers, as we talk about the justice system, and as we talk about violence in our communities and resources, a huge pathway to resources is to ensure that we all have completed our census. Our households have completed our census. All of our families' households have completed their census, and that we are counting everyone who in this year lived in our homes, counting them in the census. So visit uscensus.gov. Again, uscensus.gov to ensure that you and your family are counted. We want to make sure we're counted for federal dollars that come to our communities for education and schools, for jobs, for roads and infrastructures, for libraries and other resources. Even education and universities. So please ensure that you take action today. If you have not done so, as I am talking, you can listen to me, listen to Brother Swank, and at the same time be filling out your census. You can do both things. 10 minutes is all it takes. 10 minutes to 10 questions for resources for the next 10 years. I want to bring on now our guest for today, Kevin Bloomberg, also known as Swank. He is a community navigator with Activists Incorporated. And I'm going to bring him on now so he can talk about not only his experiences, but also what he's doing today and his role in our community. Welcome, Brother Swank.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Now, is it Swank or Swag?
Swag.
Swag. Oh, that's even more. Okay. Wait, let me make sure I put this on here correctly.
Okay.
Okay, that give it a little more swag. I like swag.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I put that up. Okay. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being willing to join and jumping on with us tonight. Right now, I know you're working with Activists, so just tell the people what you actually do with Activists.
Okay, I work there for a company called Activists as a community navigator. So part of my responsibility is bringing people together and educating them about a lot of resources that are available in the community. So primarily, I go out and I canvass the neighborhood and I meet people who may be unemployed or people who are looking to get back in school, especially a lot of young people or people who are just looking to even get their criminal records expunged. And so what I do is I get together with them, I take down their name, and I send them through a whole process where I'm in a position to like help facilitate avenues for them to find jobs, for them to get their criminal records expunged, and as well as get back to school if they're trying to do that. And I think that's very important for our communities. A lot of times we have a lot of young brothers and sisters in our communities who think that it's okay for them to break the law when there's a right way to go about doing things. One of the things that I tell them is that, hey, listen, there's a difference between doing some legally and some illegally. If you're going to be out here, then why not put yourself in a position where you can win? And you do that by first being mindful of what you're doing, how you thinking, and how you choose to respond to stuff. If you're telling me at 18 years old that you want to be a lawyer, then you should be trying to consume yourself for all things to become a lawyer. So what I would do is once I sit down and I bond with them, I build with them a little bit and figure out where their mindset is at and what it is they're trying to accomplish in life. I sit them down and I walk them through those particular things by using myself as a standard of comparison. As a Black man who dropped out of school, got kicked out of school, who really didn't believe in the educational system. And I use it as a soundboard to show them, say, hey, listen, it took me all the way until I got into like my late 20s in order to go back to school to get my education and explain to them the need for it. Right now, you really can't see it because your vision is blurry. And you think that 18, 19, 20 years old, that, hey, it's okay for you not to go to school. But once you become an adult and you have to pay bills and take on all those particular responsibilities, then education then becomes important to you. So I try to share those things with them as a community navigator as best I can to try to put them in a position where they can win.
And that's important when you say a position that you can win, because a lot of times, especially if they have dropped out or they're not in a traditional educational setting, more than likely they're going to be doing things that lead to being justice involved. So what are some of the ways that the young people you work with have been caught up and had to be pulled out of the justice system?
Well, a lot of them. I had a situation where a young man caught a gun case, and he was in a position where he was finna face some time in prison. Fortunately for me, I was a little bit familiar with the law, so when I went in and sat in with him to talk to his public defender, my first question as I sat back and listened was like, "Hey, where's the police report?" And after they showed me the police report, my next thing was like, "Where's the body cam?" And then I went on to explain to the attorney that, hey, listen, you got to have probable cause to do a lot of these different things that the police are doing. If they attain any information without having probable cause, then that's called fruit of the poisonous tree. It was kind of crazy because the public defender didn't really go in there with the intentions to try to help this young man. And so I had to come in abreast with information that could help him as a community navigator. So the end result was that he ended up getting out of that situation. And the gravity of it hit him being separated from his family, being separated from his friends and the things that he really enjoyed doing. And so I use that as an example to say, hey, listen, if you telling me that you want to become a great rapper and Jay-Z and Kanye West are your idols, then you can't see them if you stay on the block. And I don't just mean literally the block on the corner. It also means the block that's in your head. Stop limiting yourself in the way that you think. So this is a situation where if you want to get up out of this and you don't like being in this situation, then you first must start changing the way you think and the way you do.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you use that terminology, the block, because I wrote a book called Move Beyond the Block. And it is just that. It's not just about moving beyond your geographical block, even though that is a big barrier, but the biggest blocks we have to move beyond is our own minds, like our own mindset. And once you get beyond that, you can do anything. So you mentioned a lot of key points. You mentioned words like build relationships and bonds. You mentioned some of the barriers for access. Um, we had been talking lately about during COVID, and a lot of young people who just weren't adhering. They felt caved in. After a while, they started going out and not honoring the rules that have been set in place by the mayor and the city and the state. And there's a response to how we saw videos of like the mayor rolling up on people and chastising them. And my conversation is always, if you don't have a relationship with young people, they're never going to receive you. You have to have that relationship where they can trust you, one, and then they don't see it as you just condemning them, but you really caring. So tell me, like, how important is that, and how do you bond with a young guy that really doesn't respect any authority or doesn't have a lot of black men to respect? How do you build that bond?
Well, I remember how I was when I was a young man growing up, and so that hasn't. I'm never far from that in my heart or in my thinking, and I want for my brothers the same thing that I want for myself. So I'm very mindful about how I handle them. You have to be able to meet people where they at and use your wealth of information to try to guide them through particular experiences they're going through. What I've learned is that a lot of these young men is growing up now that they're not bad young men and women, just they either have bad teachers or no teachers at all. And so there's such a big disconnect between the elder generation and the youth. It's like we just throw them out there and say, hey, fend on your own, learn by trial by error. But it's a penalty that comes with that. I believe that in life, people give you free lessons. It's like how you talked about the book that you wrote on the block. That's free information for you to help navigate yourself through life. And when people give you free information and you don't take heed to it, I believe that adversity then becomes your teacher. And if she teach you, sometimes it comes with a tuition. The tuition may be you spending 5 years in prison. It may be you spending 2 years. You may end up very well getting shot and paralyzed. It's a lot of different variables that come with that. But what I do when I bond with them is I meet them where they're at. I try to find out what their interest is, and I try to help facilitate ways to help them meet their interests. We're living in a time now where everything is about instant gratification. And so what I do is if I can try to help them see that, hey, in the long run, you're talking about wealth building, and not just wealth building from a financial standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, an intellectual standpoint, that in order for you to do that, you have to understand that you have to respect the process. It's a process in order to reach whatever it is that you're trying to do in life. You didn't grow from a little baby to whatever age you is now overnight. It was a process, and you have to respect that process. And I use an example with them a lot about the butterfly and the caterpillar. A caterpillar does not transform into a butterfly unless it respects the process and if you've given it the right food or the right leaves to eat. So that goes back to food for thought. A lot of times the young black men that's coming up, we were giving food poisoning. We were absorbing a culture of bad information, and it's been perpetuated from generation to generation until we run into people like you who have come out of that culture, expanded their level of thinking, and then shared the information with us, where we start to question ourselves, our future, and our behavior. So a lot of them they want hope. They're not without hope. When you start talking to them and breathing on them and giving them some wisdom, some knowledge, and some understanding, guess what? They're going to gravitate to it. But when they gravitate to it, you still have to be able to direct them in the right way and allow them to grow and develop into the individuals they were destined to be. So it's all about just sharing information and knowing when to facilitate and give it to them. Because if you give it to them too much, guess what? It's just like if you feed a baby too quickly, they're gonna regurgitate. When you're trying to give a baby some pop, the acid in the pop is too strong for them, so you have to water it down. So you have to meet them where they at and try to water it down, but at the same time, give them hope that say, like, hey, look, man, I know where you at. I was once you. And let me tell you how I got through what I got through. And if you open to that, guess what? I'm going to guide you through it. But it's all starts with you building credibility with them and being reliable. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Stand on that, no matter what.
You just every time you drop a jewel, and I'm like, I gotta follow up with that. So you lead me right to the question. So you talked about meeting them where they are, but also remembering how you got to where you are. So tell us a little bit, Swack, about how your pathway, and your experiences leading you to be justice involved. Like when did you first have an encounter or an incident that led you to be involved with the justice system?
Well, I went to prison when I was 16 years old. I just ended up doing like almost 30 years in prison. I spent 12 years. Yeah, I just spent 12 years in TAM Supermax. I've only been home a little bit over 6 months. And so for me growing up, I had a lot of core beliefs that I never wanted to question. I was deeply rooted in that mindset. I was deeply rooted in that culture, and I helped perpetuate it. So I think for me, my stages of change started to come about when I went to TAMS when I was 25 years old. And at 25 years old, your brain is not really even fully developed. And so I'm locked in a cell 23 hours a day, by myself, void of any human contact. And so because I had a warrior spirit and I was in the combat mode, I did everything that I thought I needed to do to counter my surroundings that were designed to destroy me mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So what I did was I started reading books like crazy. I started working out to make sure I kept my body in shape. I read everything from religious books to the abolitionist movement to the feminist movement. And so those things, I started to learn that it was helping me occupy my time. For a long time, one of my core beliefs was fuck school, fuck person, fuck homework. But when I got set in that setting, unbeknownst to me, my whole core belief started to shift because I was putting work in as a defense mechanism in order to survive. When I once said, forget school, I started thinking about how is it that I can help the younger generation once I get beyond me. And for a long time, I could never get beyond it because I had that stinking thinking. I realized that as a leader, it tells you that attitude reflects leadership. It also tells you that in order for you to rise above things, you have to elevate your level of thinking. So for a long time, my vision was blurry. I couldn't see past what was in front of me. And when I started to try to look beyond that, I realized that the only way that I could help the young brothers was I had to go back to school. So now my core belief of once saying fuck school, they started to alter once I got more information and made me revise the way I was thinking. So now I ended up saving my money because I was writing a lot of pen pals when I was in Superman. So I wrote a lot of pen pals. I started saving up the money that I was getting from them, and I paid for myself to go back to school through a correspondence course, and I ended up getting my high school diploma. And so from there, it was just a snowball effect where I kept building up on knowledge, on understanding, because as a young man who got locked up at 16, who was coming up in the streets, we were always told that we would never be anything, that we were stupid. And I never wanted to feel like I was stupid, never thought I was stupid. So I was always trying to enrich myself with information. And as I continue to do that, everything else will start to develop on its own. I think it's important for us as men, as parents, and even as women, because women are actually our first teachers, that we continue to propagate and push education. A lot of information that you wrote in your book, a lot of people are unaware of it because they don't read. But when they're having conversations with you and they're able to take sound bites out of that book and share with other people, you never know what that seed's going to do to them. It may not take root right then and there, but it may take root 5-10 years down the road. So as I went through that whole process, I realized that, hey, if you want to change people's condition, you got to first change the way they think. I had to change the way that I was thinking because what I was doing was insanity. Every time I looked up, I was in SIG for fighting correctional officers. And so I started saying, listen, if I won't, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Because for a long time, I always rationalized my behavior. It's not my fault, it's their fault. And so I started realizing if I want to change this situation, maybe I got to look at myself and start changing the way that I'm thinking or the way I'm choosing to respond to things. And when I did that, I realized that doors started opening up for me. Not just opportunities around me, but the doors in my mind.
Can you kind of delve into that? You said like you were having a lot of altercations with the correctional officers. Like what do you think was underlying? What was making you respond to them in that way? Even if they were off, even if they were in the wrong, what was it about you that was making you respond the way you were responding?
I was angry. And when you're angry, when you're a young kid and you don't have all the information or the tools that you need to know how to respond to things, such as having positive self-talk, you lash out because that's all you know. I think that when you get to the point where you want to put your hands on somebody, is because you stop thinking. And my friend told me a long time ago, he said, boys fight, men talk. And so I think as a young man, when you don't have all the information that you need and you can't express yourself the way that you would like to, you respond in a physical way because our culture has taught us that that's the rule of thumb. Aggression rules.
Yep. All day aggression rules. Now I love what you said about the anger part, because right now, as you know, it's no different. I'm 44, so in the 90s, late 90s, the same violence that we seeing now, it was there before. It may not have been in every neighborhood, but the same volume was there. And a lot of people are asking, well, what's going on now? Why are these young kids shooting each other? Why are they shooting young people? And I really hope that people are listening to what you just said. If people have the tools they need, if they have the emotional intelligence that they need, if they have the development that they need, then they have different things in their toolkit that they can get when they're upset about something, when they feel disrespected, when they feel oppressed, when they feel hopeless, when they feel depressed, when they feel anxious, whatever it is they're feeling, they'll be able to articulate it or be able to reach out and say, "Swag, man, this is how I'm feeling, and I feel like I'm about to go off on somebody." You know what I mean?
Right.
And I love what Activist provides in having you as a community navigator and other brothers that are in position, because for a lot of brothers that are experiencing that, if they can call you in that moment, they know they can call you, then that alleviates some of what they could have got into.
Yes, it dissipates. I think that people need that outlet, especially as young men growing up, because a lot of us are growing up in households, whether it's single parent households, and you're not really getting the proper guidance that you need as a young man. Unfortunately, a lot of guys are going to prison and they're not even getting in there. Like you said, in the 90s, It was very violent in the 90s. The difference between the 90s and now is that you had leadership.
Yep.
And so it then became an issue back then. It was the issue was this, is that, okay, we got an issue. We got 15 people that want to take care of the issue. Who are we going to select to handle it? Now we're dealing with a situation where there is no leadership. You got babies raising babies, and so they're learning trial by error because the older generation had separated themselves away from them. Guys who came up in the 90s like me, because I'm going to be 46. The situation is that we've done 10, 20, 30 years in prison. We've done 15 years in prison. So when we come home, it's like, do I really want to put the work in that it's going to take in order to rectify this situation and put myself back in the danger zone? Or I have to go back to the penitentiary for a long time? Or do I just say, let them fend on their own? And unfortunately, guys are doing that. But what they forget is that we were once them. We was doing some of the same crazy stuff that they was doing, but we was held accountable for it. And accountability doesn't always have to be from a physical standpoint. Accountability can be by giving them the right information that they need so they know how to respond. How many people do you know sit down with young brothers now or with their sons and they talk to them about giving them tools dealing with anger management? Anger is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's good. But being able to have the tools to understand that, hey, listen, when you're in the situation and you try to tell me, hey, man, I go from 0 to 60, but I don't have any self-talk. That's not true. Somewhere along those lines, it may be rooted in your core belief. You may say, man, as an example, if this guy step on my shoes again, I'm taking off on him. If this girl say one more thing to me, I'm taking off on him. That's rooted in the core belief. So you have what's called a negative self-talk. So we can teach them to listen to that voice before they take off and say, hey, listen, man, you do have positive self-talk, and you are responsible for whatever happens in your life. No matter what goes on, you get to choose when and how you respond to it. So let's teach them how to respond to it in a positive way. And I think Activists is on the road and the pathway of trying to do that. And I think over time, it will get to that. As long as we continue to build credibility with our participants, then I think all will be well.
Man, you just said so much. You just dropped so many jewels. The first one, first and foremost, people are, oh man, you talked about anger. I'm a reader like you, so I read constantly. Maya Angelou is my hero. And Maya Angelou even talked about anger. She said that, like, anger informs you about what to do with it. It's just not to let it be bitter. And that's the thing. They don't have outlets. Everybody angry together. So it's just a big ball of anger on the same blocks in the same neighborhood. That anger is not being channeled. It's just being lit on fire. It's not being channeled in any other way. Everybody's just a flame adding to the fire. So that's
True.
I love what you said. But then you said coming back home and giving back, and that everybody is responsible for their actions. People will tell you or lament about how nobody cares when it's black on black crime, or nobody cares when we killing each other. Like, you hear all these kind of craziness, but you and I know that people who are really doing the work do care. That's what feeds us every day. That's what makes us go out and do this work. As you said, put yourself on the line, put yourself back into a lifestyle that you trying to remove, that got you in a situation that you don't want to be in anymore, but duty calls, right? And I love the fact that you said yourself, everybody is responsible for their choices. So we're not asking for people not to be accountable or not to have to deal with the consequences of their actions. That's not what is being said. What is being said is get to people before they make those choices so that they can operate in a different. Can you go into a little bit more about that?
Well, one of the cliches that I would share with a lot of young men is that our decisions today can determine our future tomorrow. And so what I mean by that is that what you do today, right now in this moment, can determine what your future is going to be 5, 10 years down the road. But as a young man, you're not really emotionally equipped or intellectually equipped to see yourself 5, 10 years down the road.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Your vision is not that vast yet. because they come through a lack of experience. But I think that, for me, when I was coming up, I had a lot of influences in the streets, in street organizations, and people may feel a particular way about that. But one thing for sure is they got on your butt when you get too far out there. Now we're dealing with a bunch of kids who are grouped up that doesn't have any boundaries. And a lot of it is false bravado. A lot of it is insecurities. A lot of it is pain. A lot of it is hurt. A lot of it is rooted in shame. And shame, the acronym I have for shame is self-hate affecting my existence. So a lot of it has to do with that as well. And it's not being addressed. So people see it happen in the community. They say, oh, well, it's black on black crime. Or people just push them to the side like they're outcasts. But they forget, them your babies, them your brothers, them your sisters. And so what's going to happen with the next generation that's coming up if we don't take the initiative as community navigators or as ex-people who are affiliated with their particular organization to teach them? If you're really rooted in what your organization was about, then guess what? This is what you're supposed to be doing anyway. This is what you're supposed to be doing anyway as a community navigator, as an activist for your people or for yourself. Because guess what? They are a reflection of you. They are us. Regardless if we want to embrace them or not, that's your little brother. That's your little sister. They are a reflection of you. And on top of that, if you don't address the issue, guess what? It may boomerang and come back and affect you anyway because you got kids and you got grandbabies. So then what? When something happens to them, everybody want to be all up in arms. It's like the song where Tupac was saying that everybody is ignorant to AIDS until it happens to you. Everybody is ignorant about what's going on in our communities until they are affected by it. And then it becomes a big issue. When we've been trying to tell you what the issue was from day one, our people perish because of lack of knowledge. So if you want to try to change the situation, make sure you disperse information out there that's going to be beneficial to them. We want to give them food for thought, not food poison.
Yeah, that shame acronym is powerful. Listen, if you're watching this video right now and you've been enjoying this conversation, or if this conversation is moving you in any way, we just ask you right now to share it. This is powerful information that we believe is life-saving and community transformational for our community. So please share. So Swag, you can you repeat that acronym again? Can you get that acronym to us again?
Yeah, shame stands for self-hate affecting my existence.
I'm typing this up here because we got to put this on the screen for people. Because at the end of the day, our first guest who was on with us, his name was Girl Cook. Mm-hmm. And he spoke about the shame. Now his story so powerful. His mother went to the prison system when he was 7 years old, and he talked about the shame of one going to visit his mother and having to be strip searched as a kid, all the way until he went in for himself. But also the shame of being reminded of that experience every day when you go to school and you gotta go past metal detectors. So your mind goes back to your mother being in prison, and then you shame when the teacher says have your parents fill out this permission slip, but you don't have, you the kid in the classroom without a parent at home, and now you gotta raise your hand and ask, can my grandmother sign this for me? And then people pick it. So I want you to kind of deal with that and tell me about your reclaiming your space as a father, and reclaiming your space in the community, dealing with that sort of shame of what you think young kids of parents or fathers who've been incarcerated, or even mothers, what do you think that they're dealing with?
I mean, it's trauma. It's rooted in trauma. A lot of it's rooted in trauma. And just like the brother, Mr. Cook, he said he was reminded of it when he went to school, or he was reminded of it when he ended up going to the prison system as well. Now, remember, that happened to him when he was about 7 years old. So around that time, you're starting to develop your personality as a child. And so as he got older, I'm assuming he went to prison when he was much older, probably over 18. When he went back, he was reminded of it because he was traumatized about that when he was, just a baby. And people think that kids are not traumatized. They are. And that's just an example of it. But people don't want to look that deep into the particular situations. And it's also rooted in a lot of shame. For me, what I've realized coming home as stepping into the role as a parent, stepping into the role as a man, because I went to prison when I was basically a kid and I grew up there. So stepping into that role, I realized that I had to mourn a lot of personal relationships. I even had to mourn the particular lifestyle that I so much enjoyed coming up. And it's a hard pill to swallow. But
Go into
when you
that. I know you're talking, but go deeper into that because I really want people who are watching this to not just take this in a general. I want people to see it, like to know what you're talking about. Because we like to glance over stuff and oh, that's not me. I don't do that, or I can't relate to that. I want you to give it to people exactly what you mean when you say the
so
life.
what I mean by like mourning particular relationships is that I grew up in a culture where we gang banged, we sold drugs, we shot dice, smoked weed. We did all of the stuff that young people do when they growing up. As I started to undergo my own personal transitions, I realized that all of those things would impede my progress as an adult trying to move forward in my life. Uh, the old saying was, when you was a child, you thought as a child, but when you get older, you no longer do childish things. So as I started to understand that cliche, and I started to build on my life and prepare myself for my future, I realized that I had a lot of homies, a lot of relatives who was not on the same plateau that I was in terms of what it is that I wanted for my life and my future. And so going into it with my vision clear and with my heart sober, with my mind sober, I knew that I would have to mourn them relationships. And what I mean by that is that I knew that I could no longer hang out with people that I grew up with gangbanging with because I was no longer a gangbanger. I could no longer hang out with people who did particular drugs because I wasn't into getting high anymore. And so I know what comes with that lifestyle when you live in it. If you out there and you live in that lifestyle where you don't have any responsibility, guess what? You're gonna be out hanging out all day, chasing women and getting caught up in all type of riffraff. I realized that I wanted structure to my life. I wanted responsibility in my life, and I knew that in order for me to have that I was gonna have to separate myself from certain things. We're taught that people come back to prison because of people, places, and things. And so if I want to alleviate going back to the prison, that means that I have to put barriers up between people, places, and things. A criminal or somebody who suffers from criminal thinking patterns is no different than somebody who suffers from alcoholism or from drug addiction. You have triggers. And because I understood what those triggers were, I knew that I would have to separate myself from these people so that I didn't cause any injury to myself. And so it hurts when you know coming home that you may have to separate yourself from your brother or from your grandmother or from your sister or from your father or from somebody that you grew up with as a young kid. It hurts because you built a bond with this individual and now this bond has to be separate because you kind of like outgrew the things that they were on. And so it hurts. It's an emotional hurt. It's a psychological hurt. But if you're mature enough and you're strong enough and you're convicted enough about what it is that you want in your life, then guess what? You have to make that hard decision. That's also as a parent, you have to be able to make those decisions. As a parent, you have to be responsible for somebody else's life, a little baby who doesn't know the things that you know. And if you don't want that child to suffer from what you went through, then guess what? You have to be there as a guide to make sure that they don't fall into those landmines and cause explosions that don't need to be caused. Because guess what? You've already navigated yourself through this landmine. So you should know better. And when you know better, you should do better. And so it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. But as an adult and as a man, it's what you have to do. Sometime in life, you're going to have to make a critical decision about what it is you want to do. And so that's just one of those moments when you're coming home from prison or you've been estranged and separated from your loved ones and your friends.
Man, you said something that I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, and I have been in these kind of conversations, but to liken it to addiction pattern of going back into the penal system or being justice involved, you can have relapses. And just like when I'm a child of a recovering alcoholic. My father's been sober since I was 16 years old, but up until I was 16, my father had been an alcoholic all of that time. So I understand the power it takes to never relapse. Thank God my father didn't, but I know what that looks like, and that's a struggle in the 12-step program. What do they tell you? Like everything you saying, to separate yourself. You can't be around people that's doing that. You can't even be you can't go in a bar. You can't go in places that's even serving liquor. You really got to be strong. So, wow. So, what I want people to hear also, and I don't know if this applies to you, if you can speak to it, but a lot of times people are born into gang culture, born into families that's entrenched generationally. Was that your experience?
No, for me, it wasn't. It wasn't that so much. I think it was. We have different agencies that teach us and educate us growing up. The household is one. The school is one. TV, radio was another. So I think outside of my household, I grew up in a community where that type of behavior was prevalent. And so you grew up as a little kid mimicking what you see or what you hear. And so I would grow up and I would see guys in the neighborhood like, man, we this or we that. And so you start to absorb that and you start to mimic what it is that you see. And so I think it started off as that. But as time went on, when I got introduced to people, selling drugs and making money from selling drugs, I became more engrossed into that culture. And then it became something that I love, because as a young man, you're always looking for challenges. You're always looking to build on who you are. And so what we're taught to fight back in a lot of Black communities. Your grandparents and your mother and them tell you, boy, if you get into a fight with somebody, you can't beat them, you better pick up something and bust their head. If you get your butt whooped, you better go back up to that school, you won't fight them again until you whoop them. So they taught us this as a defense mechanism, but at the same time, you start to build on them. And when you start to build on it, you become so ingrained in it that you start to love it. And you don't question a lot of things. We were coming up, it's a cliche, people say that I am as I am, when I'm not, I'll never be. But we never do any critical thinking. And when you hear that particular cliche, you tell me that I am as I am and that's all that I'll be, what you're telling me is that you'll never grow. And that's not true. Because you're not the same person that you are today that you were from 40 to 20. And if you're telling me that you are, that means you wasted 20 years of your life.
That's right.
So you've changed, but you never question that. You never challenge that cliche. You never challenge it because it's just something that was put out there. And a lot of it is just continuing to be perpetuated over and over and over again. And sometimes you sit back and say, like, hold up, man. They was pushing this lie when I was a little kid. So why is this lie still being pushed? Because there's so many gaps in between how we share information. A lot of times we get information, we just want to hold on to it and cover it as if it's ours. No, if it's going to help somebody else grow and develop, then get that to them. Even in the prison system, I remember one time I had to tell these guys they were being resistant towards the teacher because she was of another ethnicity. But what she was saying was all true. A guy tried to tell her that he don't have any self-talk. He go from 0 to 60 without even thinking. And I said, no, that's not true. So I facilitated the same information in a way that he would be able to understand it. He said, oh, yeah, I agree with you, Swag. I said, hey, homie, that's the same thing she just said. Oh, no, it ain't. Then I broke it down to him. Okay, now I see it. I had to sit here and explain to him and say, listen, man, if you telling me that organization, and guess what? This is your platform. In order for you to reach your brothers and teach them what you were supposed to be teaching them anyway. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You can even speak on this from a religious standpoint. If you're a religious individual, then guess what? Go out here and evangelize. Share this information.
That's right. Because
that's what it's for. What I encourage is if it's information you're putting out there is going to be helpful for them overall, then I'm going to ask you to push that. But I'm not going to ask you to push information that's going to be detrimental to you. And it's kind of hard for you to ask these young men that's coming up now to put down the guns and put down the drugs when you don't have anything to replace to give them. When they've been caught up in this doggone culture that says that my mama didn't show me, my mama and my grandmama told me that, hey, when I ain't got no money, this how you eat. You go out here and you sell drugs or you rob people. My uncle taught me that. So for them, that becomes normalized behavior. And then if I come along and ask them to stop doing it, they look at them like, man, you must be crazy. This is normal to me.
How am I gonna eat?
How am I gonna eat? So what I tell them is this here. I say, listen, when I go out and I talk to these little guys, hey man, what I'm gonna do is this here. I'm gonna give you some information so you can't say that you don't know. I'm gonna rob you of the luxury of saying that you don't know, you don't have any options. As a community navigator, guess what? My job is to give you options, to give you choices. So I'm gonna run your stuff through the database. Oh, you wanna work? Oh, you wanna work? Okay, I tell you what. I'm gonna holler at you in a couple of days. I'm gonna go find a job in your community that's hiring, and I'm gonna make sure you get there to go work if you want to go work. So now you have no excuse. I'm gonna rob you of that. I'm gonna take that away from you because our decisions today determine our future tomorrows. You gotta put some work in. You telling me you want to be rich? Guess what? You gotta start putting your work in right now while you're still a young man, and then you can go live that life you want to go live.
Shouts out to Activist organization, violence prevention, violence intervention. We are so grateful for this conversation and their support to host this conversation. The brothers like SWAC, who is on here tonight, brothers who are like Too Short. Actually, I'm gonna give y'all full name: Kevin Blumenberg and William Edwards and D Cook or Durrell Cook, for sharing this information, y'all, because the point of while we're watching this story and listening is not to rehash anybody's past or to sit around and get some, just to be entertained by somebody's story. Everything we're sharing should inform us of how we respond to young people. It should inform us about having empathy for young people when they're sitting in our classrooms or when we're being their mentor, understanding what trauma they're bringing to us, to the classroom, and how we respond. Is not, we can't continue to say back when I was this age or the way I grew up or how I was taught. That does not apply. That doesn't apply. So we have to release ourselves from that, and we have to understand. SWAC, I want you to. I heard what you said when you said, "I am that I am. That's all I'm gonna be." And you talked about the religious aspect of that. If people also understood the power of I am, because I am is a powerful, that's the most powerful statement you can speak. Whatever comes behind that I am, whatever comes behind that, that's certainly what you are. But all of us, no matter how old, when we're born, we are, I am God. I'm made in God's image and likeness. And if we understood that, that's all I will be. Yeah, that's all you will be. Anything less than that is not who you are. And so unfortunately, the world starts to get in and starts conditioning our mind to believe we're less than, or believe that we have to be dependent on selling drugs or be dependent on a gang or whatever, right? The things that take away from our God selves. But when brothers like you have the knowledge and you share it, that informs a lot. How can communities support justice involved brothers when they're coming back home? How can we help support you all reclaiming your role in the communities?
I think that we have to be patient with them. We have to be understanding with them. We have to be loving with them. And we have to nurture them in a way that we don't cripple them to the point that they become so dependent on other people doing things for them. What I've learned is that coming home, a lot of things is orientated towards your telephone. But a lot of us have come home after doing a long stretch. We really don't know how to work telephones. We're so used to writing everything down and then going through that process of learning. And I think people out here that's been in society who's never been to prison, a lot of our loved ones, it's foreign to them. And so they have these expectations that, hey, we should know how to do this or not do that within a short period of time. That's not always the case because our learning process is a little bit more different. So I think that we have to be patient with them in terms of giving them enough room and enough time to grow and develop and reactivate themselves back out here into society. We have to continue to be disciplined when it comes to them. We want them to be responsible. We don't want them to habit of always relying on our mothers and our grandmothers or our baby mamas to do things for us. And so, because if you do that, you crippling them. You're enabling them as a man, as a person, and even as an individual that's in society. Just love them, but you have to love them in a responsible way. Now I say love them. I'm just saying shower them with gifts and all that. No, you got to understand that with freedom, and also it entails responsibility, and you have responsibilities. Give them a little cushion, a little room, and also understand that they're going to need some time to have their alone time because they've been around people that have been foreign to them for so long. So you got to give them their space, but continue to stay in their ear, continue to stay positive, and if you're able to open up resources to them, do that. But don't enable them.
Don't enable. And you say two things I want you to talk about. You talked about giving space, right? What does that look like physically as a father? Kids love to jump up on you, hug you, and all this stuff. And I'm sure, women friends or wives or girlfriends want the same thing. Is that always the way that you all want to respond, or is that comfortable?
I'm gonna speak from my personal standpoint, because for some people it may be okay, but for me, you have those moments where you want to have that alone time, where you can sit there and think and go through your process of thinking from intellectual standpoint, emotional standpoint. When you come home after doing a long period of time, everybody wants your time. Your mother or your parents may feel like, hey, they should get the bulk of your time because they birthed you or because they did their bit with you. Your woman wants you to spend time with her. Other lady friends that you're going to meet want you to spend time with. So it's not enough time in the day for them plus the kids. So you have to make sacrifices when it comes to that. But it also comes down to self-care. And sometimes we forget to do that when we come home. We forget about self-care. And our loved ones sometimes forget that, hey, we need a little space sometimes to unwind and to go through a whole a cleansing process within our own self. And if you don't allow them to do that, you can disrupt your whole household. You can disrupt them and cause them to revert back to old behavior. And so it's important to give people some of that space. Hey, you want your space too. Sometimes you wake up and you only bother with the kids and nobody. And it's not that you're a bad parent. It's just that you're human. You're a human. And as a human, sometimes you just need your space. But with the kids, I love them. They may get on nerves sometimes, but when they're not here and the house is quiet, I'm like, man, I miss the little fella. Where he at? You know what I mean? When he coming back home? You know what I mean? So
that's parenthood. That's everybody. Like come get them and then bring them back, right? Like that. Yeah. That's how it is. So you a father? How many? How many? Boy, girl?
I'm a stepfather to two boys, one 16 and one 4, and it's amazing to see 4-year-old kid at this age compared to how I was, or what I believe that a 4-year-old should be like. So being able to see this 4-year-old who's super intelligent on a lot of levels, can work the telephone better than me, but can't not as efficient in tying his shoes or know other things that I feel like he should know. So, but it's amazing to see that potential in them. But that also tells me that they have so much more potential. And if we nurture it the right way, sky's the limit.
And this technology is showing you that the future is so far ahead. Like the little things we like, even writing, right? We thought that was everything, penmanship and writing, and it's like just like the hieroglyphics. Like what we were talking about, people writing hieroglyphics. You like what is that? They so far ahead that little things like tying shoes in the future, they're gonna be able to push a button and it's crazy. So I just want you to know that that's not just a being away thing. That's all of us. We all gotta make this adjustment to this new generation. It's crazy. But you also spoke to something that I want you to kind of go into as well, and that is being a role model as a parent. What are you hoping that you're showing your sons that you were not shown? I think your connection is froze up a little bit. As we wait for Swag's internet to catch up a little, if you have any comments or questions for him, we'll be wrapping up shortly. So if you have any questions, then you can go ahead and put it in the comment, the chat. You back?
Hello?
Yeah, you back. Cool.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
It's always a struggle because you have to be mindful about what you're doing all the time because they learn from what not only just what you do, but what you say. And they like little sponges, so they're always like watching you. And sometimes they come up with stuff and you hear them repeating like, what? Well, okay, I gotta be a little bit more mindful. And then they're so small, they creep right up on you and you don't know what the heck going on. So uh it's adorable, but I always try to be mindful about what I'm saying and how I'm conducting myself because I know that they're always watching. Even when you think they ain't watching, they're watching. And if they're not learning from you, they're learning from somebody else. So I also try to be mindful about, what type of games they're playing, what they're watching on TV. I have no control about what goes on in school, but I also ask questions about that as well, just exploring their mind and trying to see how they think. And I feel like how can you say you know somebody if you don't associate yourself with them? You have to be able to spend time with them and search into their resolve by asking questions. And so at the same time, I'm always mindful. I try to be mindful about what I'm saying, what I'm doing around them.
Last question, then you can finish out with any closing thoughts you have. But I do want you to tell me, like, what is your most rewarding part of working with activists? What makes you proudest to work with activists?
Acceptance. They didn't uh, judge me. They didn't put me in a box. They utilized me. And I think as human beings, we all want to be understood. We rather be understood than misunderstood. And so for them to embrace me fully the way they have since I've been home, because I've been home like a little bit over 6 months. To me, it's rewarding from emotional standpoint, intellectual standpoint, because they are allowing me to utilize my talents in a way that is beneficial to other people and even to myself. It's kind of like it's therapeutic. Uh, Growing up, I've always wanted to help people. They put me in a position where I can do that, and I can do it in a healthy way. I can do it in a way that it doesn't put me in a danger zone that I ever have to go back to the penitentiary because of a wrong decision that I made. When you're helping people, you know, it's kind of hard for somebody to do something bad to you when you're helping. You know what I mean? So for them to embrace me like that and to show me that particular type of love is humbling. And I salute them all the time. And I work hard every day to try to make sure that I spread that love to other people throughout our communities because I want them to know what that feels like.
Yeah, activists represent. I salute all of y'all. Because it's not an easy thing, and it's so easy to fall back on what you know, especially if you've been away for so long. It's so easy to fall back on. It may not be the best thing, but it's what you know, right? And it's easy to go back to that. You know how it is in prison. Ain't no surprises. So I salute y'all. There's a question that we got from an audience member. Connie Johnson, you could probably see it on the screen, but Connie Johnson is asking, what did you need as a 10-year-old that could have shifted your path?
What was the question again?
She said, what did you need as a 10-year-old that could have shifted your path?
10. So in about at 10 years old, you in about what, fourth, fifth grade?
Fifth grade, yeah.
Oh, well, I think what could have shifted my past in fifth grade. Um, hmm, I think that's around the time I started like exploring a little bit. I think that you have to find the right balance of not sheltering your kids, but at the same time not giving them too much freedom to be able to explore and grow beyond their age. I think that that's one of the dangers that we face now as parents when we're dealing with 4-year-olds who know how to operate phones and computers way better than adults, because I believe that sometimes you can be exposed to too much too soon. I think that kids should have age appropriate information, but it has to be the right kind because you don't want to shelter them. You can shelter them to the point that once they become older, then they want to explore everything because you can kept them in a box. And then the counter to that is that sometimes you can give them so much latitude to do whatever it is they want that they don't know boundaries. So I think you just have to try to balance it out. Uh, Remember to communicate with them at 10 years old. Remember that they're still developing, they have their own thoughts, and they're going to want to do things on their own, but just continue to love them. I think for me, uh, maybe uh, being mindful about some of the people that I was hanging around and the different things that I was being exposed to outside of my household, things that I was seeing in the streets. So I think if I hadn't seen some of those things in the streets, then I probably wouldn't have gravitated as quickly as I did because to me, it was like, it was fascinating. A lot of times in our communities, we glorify a lot of the negative. We glorify the gangsters. We glorify the pimps. We glorify the hustlers. And so as a young kid at 10 years old, you want that same type of notoriety and acceptance that them particular figures have.
Yeah, because we don't see the Nipsey Hustles, we don't see the Swacks, and we don't see the Too Shorts, William Too Short Edwards, and the Acklevins. We don't see that. We see the glory, what's happening right now, and so I'm glad y'all come back to say like this is what it is 30 years from now. This is what it is 20 years from now, whatever. Because it ain't always sweet. It's always the end, and what does the end look like? And I heard you talk about structure earlier, and just think like even then and now, if every park district allow young people, no, not just when they get to be 12 and 14, but all the way until they 18, 21, if young people could go back into the park district, work, have programs, if it was resource centers and recreational centers, somewhere where structured, guided supervision, then there's no telling what our young people can do. Swag, thank you. If there's any final words or final thoughts, you can tell us now. Any final thoughts you have?
I'll close by saying this: just remember that there's a scripture that says that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So we don't want our people to perish. If our people are in a ditch and they drown, let's just make sure that we uh, flood them with all of the right information that they need in order to get themselves up out of that ditch.
Thank you so much, brother, for joining us tonight, for sharing yourself with us. Thank Activists and continue support. Girls Like Me Project is definitely a friend of Activists, and that means we family, so we got you.
No doubt.
Thank you so much. All right.
All right.
Peace.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, again, y'all, this is heavy, a heavy week, but a very important week of this kind of conversation. Again, this is not to hold anybody under a microscope and pick them apart because our brothers are human, and this is for us to see for ourselves a reflection of what we need to do. One, to prevent violence, prevent our brothers and sisters from being involved with the justice system. And two, when they come home, to be the support that they need, to understand the role and the accountability that they have to the community that they want and desire to have a role and accountability to the community. And so I thank you all for tuning in and listening and giving the space and the consideration. If you have watched this video, we ask that you share it. We do believe that it saves lives. Activist is about self-development of the individual, and then when that individual has a job opportunity, has a role in the community, is able to learn and grow. Brother Swack, as we saw, has been doing the self work all the entire time he was away. He was actually building himself up so that he comes home already ready to give back. So just a reminder, if you have not, this is the time to fill out the census, uscensus.gov. Make sure you fill that out. And tomorrow night, we'll see you back here at 6 o'clock. We will have Thomas on with us, who is another activist brother, to share his experience. And we going to keep it rolling, y'all. I'll see you tomorrow night. Peace.